Hey, how you guys doing? Welcome back to another episode of Soldier Talk the podcast. I'm your host, Staff Sergeant McPherson, and on this show we discuss military topics with current and prior service members. Today I have a special guest with me. I have Chief Montgomery. What's up, Chief?
What's going on, man? How you doing?
Doing all right.
Good. Thank you for inviting me to the show.
No problem, sir. So, Chief, kind of go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Well, I'm Chief Montgomery. Been in for about 12 years now. Born and raised out of Chicago, Illinois. Decided to cross over to Warrant back in 2019. So I didn't join until I was the age of 26. So my career path has been a little bit different. I went to college first, played basketball. Then I decided to join the Army. So been rocking it ever since, and it's been a good ride so far for me.
Okay, Chief. So, where you say you from?
Chicago, Illinois.
Okay, so kind of tell the people what made you join the Army.
So back in 2009, actually, my aunt, who just retired actually from the Air Force, that was my initial intent to join the Air Force. So I actually took the ASVAB, did my physical and everything with the Air Force, and the recruiter at the time, she told me that it would be a delay just due to mission requirements, so I probably wouldn't sign my contract until late of 2010. So I said, okay, cool. I don't have no issue with that because I wasn't in like a rush to join. I was almost finishing up my bachelor's degree, so I wanted to complete that first. So as time kind of progressed, just talking to my aunt, talking to other family members, they were telling me, did I look at the Army? And I said, no. So I actually looked at the Marine Corps, I looked at the Navy, but I never looked at the Army as an option, actually. So, fast forward a few months, I was reaching out to the Air Force recruiter. I didn't hear anything from her. Now, mind you, she did tell me that I wouldn't do anything until later of 2010. So I knew that stamp on a timeline, but just communication was just different because I would reach out to her just to ask questions and no answer. So after talking to family members, they was like, why don't you join the Army? So I went to go talk to an Army recruiter, and man, like understanding the recruiting process, I was already test phys qualified, and I was that recruiter's lucky day at like 8:30 in the morning. And he was like, you already test phys qualified. So fast forward 30 days later, I joined the Army because I had the little hang up on the job that I wanted, which is 42 Alpha Human Resources. And it took about 30 days, and then voila, I joined.
Okay, sir. So that's how it is with a lot of recruiters. Like, I don't know what it is, but sometimes I would say it'll be a sign, cause sometimes it'd be like when stuff don't work out the way you want it to, it's probably was meant for you to join the Army. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I understand. I agree. I am a firm believer of things happening for a reason. So I can say, even throughout my military career, on things that have happened and things that have not happened, I always took it a sign as, maybe that's not meant for me for it to happen that way, and God had a different plan. And each time that has happened, it actually has worked out in good favor. So yeah, I am a firm believer of like things happening for a reason. Because who's to say if I did join the Air Force, right? That, not saying it's a bad branch, but where would I be in my career path right now? Would I have had the same fortunes and experience that I got out of the Army? So yeah, so I can attest that I think this was the best route for me.
Okay, so going into it, so what made you want to be a 42 Alpha?
So I got my degree in accounting, actually. So when I was looking at the jobs overall, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay in as long as I am. I'm at 12 years now. So I looked at it as, all right, what is the job that I can do that complements my degree if I just do, my 3 or 4 years and decide to get out, and how would that fit in with what I already have as far as schooling and education? So I looked at finance and human resources. So I said, all right, whichever one comes first, that's the one I'm going to go with. So as time kind of progressed, I started learning, doing more research, and I saw that with human resources, you needed a secret clearance. Finance, you didn't. So I said, all right, I think that'd be more valuable for the civilian population just in case So I told my recruiter that, hey, I would like to do human resources. And then, of course, conversating with my aunt, my uncle, who have had experience in the military, they told me they thought that was a good route. So that's what made me want to be 42 Alpha, solely off of potential experience and civilian networking, and then the secret clearance.
Okay, so like the secret clearance. So what type of I thought everybody get a secret clearance though, right?
Not every MOS get a secret actually. So I don't finance, for example, which they're actually called comptrollers now. They don't need a secret clearance. So no, everybody that comes into the Army doesn't need a secret clearance. So
Okay, because I got a secret too, but
okay.
I know it's levels. It's a top secret too, right?
Yes, you got there's even higher levels on the top secret side too, after top secret. So and that just comes with experience, job requirements, and if it requires you to have a SCI type clearance and things like that. So yeah, there's levels to those clearances as well. So but yeah, every soldier, like for example, you have your 92 Golfs, which are the food, right, specialists. They don't require a secret clearance. So yeah, or laundry specialists don't require a secret clearance. So yeah.
Okay, so as a 42 Alpha, so what type of things did you learn as a human resource specialist that you still do as a warrant officer right now?
I would say the first and most important thing is learning regulations. Actually, being abreast, constantly researching the new regulations, understanding them, looking at different meal per messages that come out. So as an E4, I would say my first job as an HR specialist, it was finance. My NCO, he actually put me in as a finance clerk. So I read the entire DoD Volume 7 Alpha for Finance, and that gave me a whole perspective on how finances ran and what right to left limitations that soldiers could do in regards to debt, in regards to their pay, how it all works. So that forced me to research and then just being organized as well as a finance clerk, because there's certain guidelines that you have to follow when submitting leave forms. There's pay inquiries that you have to follow. If you have to follow, if a soldier has a debt, there's something that you can assist with a soldier with a debt forgiveness. So there's different steps that I learned according to by being in finance first. So that to this day, I'm still researching the regulations, which I think every soldier should do anyhow. But a lot of times that's a lost art, right? We tend to go based on what someone tells us instead of making sure we research it. So I live by the rule: trust but verify at the end of the day. So you might tell me something, I'm still going to go back and verify just to make sure that you're spot on. Not that I question you or doubt your abilities. I still want to make sure for myself so that way I can see it for myself. So
Okay, sir. So you said you was a finance clerk, but that falls up on the 42 Alpha, right?
yes, it does.
Okay. So, uh, so what made you want to transition into a warrant officer?
Well, I would say actually becoming a warrant was not even in my scope of path that I wanted to follow. I had an outstanding sergeant major, outstanding NCO. So I always, between them two, they always told me to look 2 grades up, right, in terms of promotion. So I would always research other NCOs to look at what they have done, and I'll say, okay, at minimum, if I do this or this, I should at least make it here with no problem, right? So as a specialist, besides just doing finance, I had to do NCOERs. I got to review NCOERs. I got to do awards. I got to do other actions that falls under HR. So along my path, I got DA selected to be a recruiter. So while I was on recruiting duty, actually, I was going to pursue the officer route. And the first sergeant was like, man, why don't you drop a warrant packet? And I was like, well, I've only met one warrant, because, the notion of warrants is like a unicorn, right? Most people think like it's not a lot of warrants around, and you rarely ever see a warrant officer being around a unit like that because it's a very small population. Mm-hmm. But I was like, I only met one warrant officer that I can remember her name. I told him her name. He called her right there on the spot. So me having foreshadowed or having a vision to become a warrant officer was not my intent. It was to either make sergeant major or go to officer, the O grade route. And then when warrant officer came into play, I looked at it and I didn't have no reservations about it. I was like, okay, let's go for it. So spoke to shout out to well, she's retired now, but a Chief Ashford. She called me the next day, asked me a few questions. She was like, "Look, I got you. I'll bless off on your letter of recommendation." And 2 weeks later, my packet is pretty much submitted.
She was in your chain of command?
No, so on USAREC, when you're a recruiter, you don't really have any warrant officers. You have to have
your
a
chain of command.
Yeah, exactly. But as a warrant officer, when you go that route, you have to have a warrant in that field sign off on a letter of recommendation for you. So
as a recruiter or whatever field you applying
whatever field you're applying to. So unless it's like something like legal, right? You have legal warrant officers. They don't really require that. But as a 420, you have to have another 420 signing off on your as a letter endorsing you. So I'll have my company commander, my battalion commander sign off. But in order for me to submit that packet to a sessions for warrant officers, I have to have a letter of recommendation from a 420 Alpha. And it has to be at least a minimum of a CW3.
It has to be a minimum of that?
Yes. So a CW2 cannot write you a letter of recommendation endorsing you to become a warrant officer.
Okay. So we're going to kind of get into the packet. That's the documents that's required for the board for the actual packet. Mm-hmm. So for a warrant officer, you need your DA Form 61, as it say, which is the application for appointment.
Right.
On that form, basically, you chose what the top three MOS that you would want, right?
No, actually, so for warrant, you still fill out that same form, right? But you're already only submitting an application for that particular field that you're already in. So, for example, 92 Yankee or 92 Alpha, they're going to apply, most likely, if they have the time and service and the experience, they're going to apply to become a 920 Alpha. Mm-hmm. So same thing for 42 Alphas. We're going to typically apply for 420 Alpha. Now, you can apply for flight to become like a flight warrant. That's any MOS. But typically, if you're already in that field, you're going to go that route of that warrant officer. So on the DA Form 61, you have to select the reserve route because the Army actually doesn't authorize WO1s. So they put you in a reserve status, but on active duty, right, until you make CW2. But you select AG as your the route that you're going, and then you complete the rest of the information on there. But you don't have to select 3 different routes as if you're going to get chosen for one of those 3 routes. No, you're only going one way. That's why that endorsement letter from that CW3 or CW4 or even a CW5 is very important in that particular field.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next form you would need is a letter of recommendation from your company commander.
Correct. Yeah, so for me, I did pretty well on recruiting, so my company commander didn't have no issues with writing me a letter of recommendation. Actually, part of her recommendation was on the DA Form 61 as well, so they write their statement. Same thing with the battalion commander as well. So either one of them didn't have any issues with giving me a letter of recommendation at all. Okay.
So what about the next thing you'll need is your letter of recommendation from your battalion commander.
Right. And like I said, yeah, same routing process. Pretty much submitted the same request. I actually talked to him. He wrote it that day, actually, that I needed it. So yeah, he didn't have any issues. Shout out to Colonel Mitchell. So he definitely was pushing forward too as well. He thought it was a good thing for me to do.
Okay, so so they wrote it. You didn't. So they wrote it the same day, or?
So yeah, who is now a major? My company commander at the time, she was a captain. She wrote it.
She was in a recruiting thing?
Yeah, she was a recruiting command as the company commander. So she wrote her portion, and then my battalion commander wrote his portion the same day of the packet. So, mind you, most people who already have envisioned that they want to submit a warrant packet, normally know months in advance, right? So they're building that packet slowly. I had about 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to build that packet and get it submitted up to HRC.
Okay, and then you already talked about your senior. Then the third letter of recommendation is from your senior warrant officer.
Correct.
So, what about the resume? Did you submit a resume with your packet?
Yeah, so the resume just encompasses what you've done so far in the Army, right? So for 420s, we look at it overall experience. How much S1 time have you had? If you had any brigade time, battalion time, corps time, G1 time, like all of that kind of encompasses. What I have seen is like some individuals who don't have that S1 time, they might have been like in a postal unit. They might have a little bit of a harder time or rejection because they don't have that experience. But it doesn't mean you can't submit it. It just depends on your level of experience and competence and how your NCOER is were written and where you've been rated in the previous.
Okay. So, you also see one thing I don't see on here is your NCOERs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it is on here, evaluation reports.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So for warrant officers for 420s, our minimum requirement is normally 8 years. Now you can get it waived at 6 years.
So you need 6 NCOERs?
No, typically they want to see at least 4 or 5. So really, once you become E5, they want to see how many NCOERs, and if you are E6, then with 8 years you don't need a waiver. If you're E5 with only like 5 years in, then you might need like a waiver for that. Now, granted, if you have a master's degree, that will actually cut that time down, so you can be able to be granted a waiver with only 6 years. Mm-hmm. Well, if you don't only have a bachelor's, then 8 years is typically the route. So mm-hmm. I think the timeline, they want you to have a little bit of experience because the role of a WO1 is very intense. You're learning a lot. You're learning different systems and things like that. Now, the evaluation portion is important. It's very key. That is pretty much what makes or break you in order to advance in your career or to even pursue something like warrant officer or officer, right? So depending on how your leadership viewed you is very key. I've seen soldiers want to go warrant, but they had like Met standard evaluations. That's pretty much a no-go if you're trying to pursue a warrant officer. So,
you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's important. So that senior rating is important.
Yeah, exactly.
Cause but sometimes like some of your raters can be inexperienced, mm-hmm. and they'll rate NCOs. They'll rate them like they'll give them mediocre NCOERs because they inexperienced. So they don't really know nothing about NCOERs. Like, say if you newly promoted E5, mm-hmm. and you got a first lieutenant or a second lieutenant as your rater, like sometimes they don't be knowing how to write it.
Right.
And that can affect you too down the line. So it's good to like when you getting ready when you know you finna make E5, you want to be already have a mentor as far as your NCOERs and know what route you want to take. So you'll know, okay, my NCOER is supposed to look like this if I'm trying to go this route.
Yeah, no, you actually are 100% right. Even when your NCOER is being written, and I'll say even using you for an example, you want to make sure someone that's senior that can actually review it, because you might not look at it as, okay, is that an issue? Especially if you have a SAR major in your footprint, have your SAR major, especially if they're the same MOS as you, have them look at it, or a first SAR, because they will give you some detailed facts on how strong your evaluation needs to be. Look, I challenge every soldier to strive for the best, right? Like, don't accept just a flat out one-time written, no rebuttals, no understanding of changing your evaluation. Like, challenge it, right? But you want to make sure that you're doing it respectfully. You want to make sure that you come with facts and show what you have done for the organization, right, to quantify that NCOER. So it's very important that you do have a mentor to look at your evaluation. Like, I'll use me, too, as an example. As a W1, I had my first OER, right? I allowed my CW5 and a CW3 review my first level OER. They came back with their information. I gave that to my OIC, my rater, and my senior rater. they were willing to make the changes that was necessary. Because now I'm able to quantify what I've done. Because a lot of times, same as with us, the raters who are O grades, they might not know how to write a warrant officer OER, right? So that is always the best course of action, to have someone view it, because look, you'll have some leaders say, "I don't want to make you look too perfect."
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with that statement, right? I look at it like, look, if you're doing the job at an outstanding rate, why not? I'm doing good. I'm doing great. I'm doing excellent. So why not give me that rating? That's how I look at it. So I don't believe in that statement at all. I think every soldier should get the best written evaluation, and challenge their leaders to. And then also I challenge leaders to not just give soldiers subpar evaluations, because that affect them later on in their career, but that also can kill their morale. But also, as a soldier, you have to make sure you're putting in that work to deserve a top rating NCOER as well, evaluation.
And when it goes to that rebuttal, like if you get anything less than highly recommended, or highly, if you just get what's the other one? Is highly
So you got most
highly
qualified, highly
yeah.
qualified, then you got Met standard.
Yeah. So if you get anything less than Met standard, anything less than highly qualified, you just get qualified. You want to always rebuttal that, especially if your NCOs haven't been counseling you. Like, there's no reason why they should put that on your NCR if you haven't received any kind of counseling on how you can improve.
Exactly. And that's something that, as leaders, we have to make sure that we hold ourselves accountable, and our soldiers, right? Because if you have a soldier that's looking for guidance, counseling them, it does help. Now, you can do a written counsel or you can do a verbal counsel, but you want to make sure you're having that line of communication on what you expect. And then every so often, every 30 days, you want to sit down with that soldier and see, all right, this is what you improved on. Hey, maybe you should look at this. So it's all about development. So for a lot of the seniors, I think it's very important to help these young soldiers figure it out, because a lot of times these young soldiers come in and then they just get caught into a comfort zone, and then they don't want to do anything else. And by the time they realize anything else, they either want to get out, or they've gotten in trouble or something like that has not allowed them to progress. Typically, if you got someone that's progressing, right, they're going to keep working. They're going to keep moving up. They're going to keep thinking and being innovative and being ambitious to want to move up, right? Mm-hmm. They see that incentive. So sometimes young soldiers don't have that. I was fortunate to have a leader like that. And I encourage even the soldiers in my shop to always be ambitious. And if they want to do anything, look, I have no problem with it. Same thing with the NCOIC that's down there as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's what's the evaluations report in the packet. Also, you need your college transcripts. Do you submit any college transcripts, sir?
You do. It's highly encouraged to at least have an associate's. If you got a bachelor's, that's great. If you got a master's, that's even better, right? So it's encouraged no matter what route you go. I think you should have some type of form of higher education, because it just opens doors for you that you might not even understand right now. So being able to go to college shows a level of commitment as well. So even if it's not for warrant officer or officer, it's still something good to have as an NCO, right? Because remember, you're going to have a lot more 18-year-old kids following after you. So showing them that you can too go to college, and plus the Army going to pay for it, right? So why not take advantage of it? But yes, part of that packet, I submitted my transcripts, which were from Robert Morris University, with a bachelor's degree in accounting. And then actually, I submitted my master's transcripts as well, because right when I submitted my packet, I think I was like 6 classes short from having my MBA. So that showed even a higher standard as well of as far as higher education.
So you done with your MBA?
Yes. Yeah, I graduated with my MBA back in February 2020.
Okay. Yeah, so there you guys go. Y'all kind of got a rundown on Chief Montgomery and basically the warrant officer packet and his route and what he did to get everything submitted. So Chief, anything you want to lead the soldiers with in closing?
Yeah, just one little statement I'll say, as young soldiers or even seniors, right? Understand, like, difference between being compliant and committed. You know, what is the difference, right? So if you're being compliant, you're just following the rules, doing what's minimum required, so you won't get in trouble, right? Commitment means that you're trying to always excel. You're always trying to think outside the box, and that can be personal life or professionally, right? So always push yourself to the next level because you don't know who that might affect or inspire in the future. So yeah, that's it. Understanding the difference between compliance and commitment.
Okay. So there you guys go. This has been another episode of Soldiers Talk the Podcast. And I see you guys at Formation. Make sure you follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Also, I'm on YouTube at Soldiers Talk the Podcast and Instagram. And I'll see you guys next time.
Take care.